This image, it's one we showed you earlier. It flooded through social media today. Different angles of it. It was taken yesterday amid the growing outrage over the shooting death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. Images of police in riot gear walking toward a man with his hands raised, pointing their weapons at him from a few feet away. But of course, part of the reason we're seeing such widespread and reverberating outrage over the death of Michael Brown outside St. Louis is that it comes right on the heels of other images, like this one of Eric Garner, whose death was ruled a homicide by a medical examiner after he was put in a chokehold by a New York City police officer in July. Or this one of a 51-year-old African-American woman on the ground being punched by a California Highway Patrol officer, also in July. But here's the thing. It's not just those images that have led to so much outrage and anguish and condemnations of the state of American justice. It is those images juxtaposed against some other big stories this year, such as these pictures of the open carry movement that show gun owners just strolling the aisles of a Target store carrying long guns and assault rifles, or a woman standing with her gun at an intersection holding a flag that reads, "Come and take it." Or most iconically, this from the Bundy Ranch in April of a man in sniper position aiming his rifle at federal officers from the Bureau of Land Management. Try to imagine if any of these people were African American. Try to imagine what would have happened at the Bundy Ranch if they had used the tactics of Ferguson, Missouri last night. In 1967, images of Black Panthers with guns walking into the California State House to protest a gun control measure actually helped contribute to the modern gun control movement. Governor Ronald Reagan saying at the time, there's no reason why on the street today a citizen should be carrying loaded weapons. In 2002, Tony Award and Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright August Wilson articulated the racial double standard that continues to dominate the country. There's a difference, he said, between white and black in America. A black man unarmed standing in a vestibule of his house is shot 41 times. A white man waving a rifle on the lawn of the White House, 150 yards from the leader of the free world. They negotiate with him for 10 minutes and shoot him one time in the leg. That's a difference in being white and black in America. Joining me now, Philip Agnew, Director of Dream Defenders, and retired NYPD Detective Mark Claxton, Director of the Black Law Enforcement Alliance. Mark, I'd like to start with you. I think I remember growing up in New York in the 1980s and 90s, and there was a series of incidents of police brutality. There was a lot of anger and unrest, then, of course, culminating in LA with the Rodney King incident and the riots after that. Have things gotten better in the 30 years, or I guess 20 years since Rodney King? Have things gotten better in terms of how police are trained, about how they interact, about what they do, about whether they're held accountable?
No, actually, there's been a significant shift in many police models across the nation, and that is as far away as possible from community policing and more towards this more militarized show of force, use of force type policing. It's been increasingly about producing numbers, arrest numbers, and showing force in communities as opposed to relating to communities, communicating with communities, and diffusing situations prior to them happening.
So you think the trajectory is actually getting worse?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. I mean, you showed the images, for example, of police officers in full military regalia at a civil disturbance for all intents and purposes. And a lot of times, those type of incidents, that type of show of force exacerbates situations, and it really damages the relationship that should exist, the good relationship between police departments and the community at large. They are the client, and they should always be considered as a client and not some entity that needs to be enforced upon.
Philip, you've been doing a lot of organizing around this issue, and obviously it's something that's been acutely problematic in Florida, in certain areas of Florida, but around the country. I mean, how much do you see this as a trend? How much do you see this as an enduring reality that's been like this for a long time?
It's been like this for a very long time. It's been like this for a very, you know, Chris, ever since you're born, you're taught that this posture right here should guarantee you life and liberty in your interaction with the police officer. This should indicate to a police officer that you mean him or her no harm, that you have no malice in your heart, and that you're subjecting yourself to the will of that police officer. And this is the position that for years in this country was the last position that people that look like me and people that look like people around this country died in. And so this is an enduring trend in this country. This should mean, this is the white flag. I'm surrendering to you. And it's only so long, what you're seeing in Ferguson, it's only so long that people can look in their timeline and see kids dying and not react in a way that's human and that's real and that's genuine. You can't scroll past a picture of a young man in the middle of the street on his stomach with his brains blown out and react in any other way than the people are reacting right now. This should mean I want to live. And this is an enduring trend. He said it before. This is a consequence of heavy militarized police forces that have been infused with money from the federal government to terrorize communities.
Mark, when we have these discussions about police-community relations, particularly along the axis of race, there is a sort of historic nature of distrust between law enforcement, African Americans distrusting law enforcement, people of color distrusting law enforcement, particularly in urban environments. And I wonder just how you watch this unfold as a black man and as a former police officer, and how you think about those two identities of yourself.
That's an excellent question. Let me just say first and foremost, I think that in large part we've had incidental distrust of police, because as I grew up and the way that I grew up and many of my friends and family members, et cetera, did not have this innate distrust or dislike of police officers. It is the interactions that we've had historically. It is the interactions that we've had on a personal level that impact how we look at policing in general. It's the same. Sadly, it's the same type of mentality that occurs in communities. You can only go based on your own personal experiences. The struggle and the challenge, and Mr. Agnew's emotion is clear here, and this is why it's so important for us to deal, one, responsibly and respectfully and honestly with the racial component and dynamic that exists throughout the nation in law enforcement, et cetera, but then also be honest about where policing is going, how far away it's going from, to serve and protect, and more towards the terms of enforcement.
I would like to see more police officers sitting down with Philip Agnew and Mark Claxton.
Well, absolutely.
And figuring out what models of policing that don't look like what we are seeing in Ferguson right now look like.
No.
Right.
No, and Chris, I would love to see more police officers in communities who are sitting with people, but they're not incentivized on that model.
And they're also not being held accountable when things go wrong, and that is why I think the nation's eyes right now are on Ferguson. Philip Agnew.
Absolutely.
From Gene Defenders, retired NYPD Detective Mark Claxton. Thank you, gentlemen, both. I will talk to someone who literally wrote the book on the militarization of America's police forces next.